In the early 1900s, the coastal town of Ravenswatch was a bustling port, with ships arriving from distant lands, bringing goods and stories alike. Dominating the rugged cliffs stood the Ravenswatch Lighthouse, its beam a guiding star for sailors navigating the treacherous waters below. The lighthouse keeper, Samuel Grady, was a solitary figure, dedicated to his duty. However, one stormy night, both Samuel and the light vanished, leaving the town shrouded in darkness and mystery. Decades later, in 1925, Jonathan Mercer, a historian with a fascination for maritime legends, arrived in Ravenswatch. The town had dwindled in size and spirit, the once thriving docks now silent. Jonathan had come to investigate the tales surrounding the lighthouse's dark past, hoping to uncover the truth behind Samuel Grady's disappearance. He took residence in the old keeper's cottage, a stone's throw from the lighthouse. The locals were wary, offering little more than warnings. "Some stories are best left untold," an elderly fisherman muttered, his gaze fixed on the distant silhouette of the lighthouse. Jonathan spent his days poring over Old Town records and his nights exploring the lighthouse. The structure had succumbed to time, its walls damp and crumbling. Yet, there was an unsettling aura, as if the building itself breathed. One evening, as a storm brewed, Jonathan discovered Samuel Grady's journal hidden beneath loose floorboards. The entries spoke of strange occurrences, whispers in the wind, shadows that moved independently, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. The final entry read, "The light is more than a guide. It's a barrier. If it fails, so do we." Determined to understand, Jonathan decided to rekindle the lighthouse's flame. He repaired the mechanisms and, on a particularly foggy night, lit the beacon. The light cut through the mist, illuminating the churning sea. As he admired his work, a whisper echoed through the chamber, calling his name. He turned, but the room was empty. The temperature dropped, and the shadows seemed to stretch and twist. Panic set in, and he fled to the cottage, the whispering following him, growing louder, more insistent. The next day, Jonathan sought out the oldest resident, Agnes Thorne, hoping for answers. Her eyes, clouded with age, held a glint of fear as she spoke. The lighthouse was built not just to guide ships, but to keep things at bay. Samuel knew this. When the light went out, something from the deep took him. She handed him a faded map, marking a cave beneath the cliffs, accessible only during low tide. Whatever haunts the lighthouse comes from there. Armed with a lantern and resolve, Jonathan ventured into the cave at dusk. The air was thick with the scent of salt and decay. Deeper inside, he found symbols etched into the walls, matching those in Samuel's journal. A sense of dread enveloped him as he approached a subterranean pool. The water was unnaturally still, reflecting the lantern's light. From its depths, a shape emerged, a mass of darkness, eyes glinting like stars. The whispers returned, now a cacophony, urging him to extinguish the light. Realizing the entity thrived in darkness, Jonathan held the lantern high, its glow causing the creature to recoil. He understood now. The lighthouse's beam wasn't just a guide, it was a ward against this malevolence. Summoning his courage, he recited passages from Samuel's journal, invoking protection. The cave trembled, the entity's form dissolving into shadows, retreating into the abyss. Emerging from the cave, Jonathan felt the weight lift. He returned to the lighthouse, ensuring the beacon remained lit. The townsfolk noticed the change. The air seemed lighter, the oppressive gloom dissipating. Jonathan documented his findings, sharing the true purpose of the lighthouse. Ravenswatch slowly revived, the legend of the haunted lighthouse transforming into a tale of resilience and vigilance. Years later, visitors to Ravenswatch would hear the story of Jonathan Mercer and the lighthouse that stood as a sentinel against the darkness. And on stormy nights, when the wind howled and the sea roared, the beacon's light shone steadfast, a reminder of the thin veil between the known and the unknown. As the days grew shorter and the autumn winds swept through Ravenswatch, Jonathan Mercer found solace in his routine at the lighthouse. The beacon remained lit, and the oppressive darkness that once loomed over the town had receded. However, the solitude began to weigh on him, and the vast emptiness of the sea seemed to mirror his own isolation. One crisp morning, as Jonathan performed his regular maintenance checks, he noticed a figure approaching the lighthouse. Dressed in a sturdy wool coat with a satchel slung over her shoulder, the woman moved with purpose. As she drew nearer, Jonathan could see her auburn hair escaping from beneath a knitted cap, and her eyes, sharp and inquisitive, scanned the surroundings with keen interest. "Good day," she called out, her voice carrying over the sound of the crashing waves. "I'm Evelyn Clark. I've been assigned as your assistant keeper." Jonathan was taken aback. He hadn't been informed of any new appointments. Nonetheless, he extended his hand. "Jonathan Mercer, welcome to Ravenswatch Lighthouse." Evelyn's grip was firm and her gaze unwavering. "I've heard about the incidents here. I specialize in folklore and have experience with, shall we say, unexplained phenomena. The Maritime Authority thought I could be of assistance." Jonathan nodded slowly. "Your expertise is welcome. There's much that remains a mystery." With Evelyn's arrival, the workload became more manageable. Together they maintained the lighthouse, ensuring the beacon remained steadfast. Evelyn proved knowledgeable, her background in folklore providing insights into the legends surrounding the lighthouse. One evening, while organizing the storage room, Evelyn uncovered an old logbook belonging to Samuel Grady, the former keeper who had vanished. The entries detailed not only the daily operations, but also cryptic references to rituals performed to keep malevolent forces at bay. "Jonathan, look at this," Evelyn said, pointing to a passage. "Grady mentions a seal of light that must be renewed monthly to prevent the abyss from awakening. Have you come across anything like this?" Jonathan shook his head. "No, but it might explain the recent disturbances. Perhaps the seal has weakened." Determined to restore the seal, Jonathan and Evelyn delved into Grady's notes, deciphering the ritual's components. It required specific items: a lantern lit with oil from a whale, a mirror reflecting the full moon, and salt harvested from the sea at dawn. Gathering the materials proved challenging, but their combined efforts prevailed. On the night of the full moon, they ascended to the lantern room. Following Grady's instructions, they placed the mirror to capture the moon's reflection and lit the lantern with the whale oil. As the salt was sprinkled in a circle around them, they recited the incantation: "By light and sea we bind thee. Darkness, return to the deep." The lighthouse trembled, and the beacon flared brightly, casting an intense beam over the waters. A distant, anguished wail echoed through the night, then silence. In the days that followed, the oppressive atmosphere that had plagued Ravenswatch lifted. The townsfolk noticed the change, their spirits brighter, their steps lighter. Jonathan and Evelyn continued their duties, their partnership growing into a deep friendship. With the seal restored and the lighthouse's true purpose understood, they remained vigilant, knowing that as long as the beacon shone, Ravenswatch would be safe.